Hey guys, back with another video again in X-Plane 11 VR, the 11.20 beta version, first version of VR ever produced by X-Plane or Laminar Research, I should say. And we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive today. I did a first look and overview, got a lot of responses on that. I thought I'd spend some time doing a little bit of a deep dive here and try to answer some of the questions that I've seen in social media and on VR Aviators group to give people a heads up on what to expect when they install and download 11.20 betas. But first, let's talk about installing it. You want to use the X-Plane 11 installer executable, which is in your X-Plane 11 folder. You click on that and you hit install X-Plane, and you'll have a box that you need to check that says check for betas. Once you do that, you can install it. Now, I highly recommend installing a second copy of X-Plane. On that X-Plane installer executable, you'll also see the option to do that. Install a second copy of it just to keep the beta version separate from your production. There may be some plugins and custom scenery that you don't want intermixed while you're testing out the 11.20 beta. And it's always good to test out beta in its own environment. So make sure you consider doing that, as I have. So once you have that installed, you want to make sure you'll have Steam VR installed as well, whether you're using Oculus Rift or HTC Vive. And both of those are the two headsets that are officially supported with X-Plane 11. So you'll want to have Steam VR running, and that'll enable you to interface or interact with X-Plane 11 in VR. The reason why you need Steam VR is the API between X-Plane 11 and virtual reality, API application program interface. Once you have that set up, you'll go into settings and you'll hit enable VR and enable VR hardware. And once you do that, boom, it'll be in your headset. Okay. And you'll be in this spot that I am now, which is in this giant, huge hangar inside X-Plane 11 VR, massive, with these massive, this massive 747 and some GA planes as well. And this is where you start. You see this whiteboard with the typical X-Plane 11 menu that you're used to. So how do you interface with X-Plane 11 VR? Well, the way to do that is with a motion controller like you see right here. I'm using Oculus Rift, so this is a touch controller represented in VR. You can also use the HTC Vive, which has the Vive controllers. They're represented in VR, and they function the same way within X-Plane 11 VR. Now, you won't be able to use a mouse currently in X-Plane 11 VR as of the first release, VR1, I think it's called. Motion controller is the only way to interact with menus and stuff inside X-Plane 11. Now, I believe Laminar is looking at enhancing that. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. So in any event, let's talk about one of the key functions that you'll use with your controller, which is teleporting. And the way to do that is you can see you've got this joystick here. I'm going to go down here so you can see my controller. I got this joystick here, and I'm twirling around that joystick. Well, what you want to do is you want to point the controller where you want to go, and you press down that joystick, and you'll see this blue arc, okay? And that blue arc, once you let go of that joystick, boom, you teleport to that spot. And the cool thing about it is you can do it long or short, and you can use the joystick to turn around like that. You can turn your view of where you will be once you teleport. So let's say I want to look the opposite direction. I would do that, and now I'm looking the opposite direction towards where the board is, okay? And I can basically teleport anywhere within this environment, right up to these huge 747 tires, okay, if I want to. And this will be the way that you're going to interact inside X-Plane 11 if you want to do things like pre-flight inspections, okay? Now, to get back to the whiteboard quickly, you just hit the B button, okay? You hit that B button, and boom, there I am right in front of the whiteboard, which is where all the action happens. And that's basically it for the hangar at this point. Main thing is you want to be in front of this whiteboard. And you'll use this, you can see that blue laser, that tells you where you're pointing. And you'll use this to interact with X-Plane 11's menu system. So first, let's go into settings. And you can see it's the typical settings that you're used to having in X-Plane in 2D. You've got your general, you've got your sound settings, you've got your graphics settings. We'll come back to this in a second. You have your network settings. Here I have it set up for iPad so I can run ForeFlight. You'll have your data settings. Now you want to check the frame rate show in cockpit, and this will show your frame rate in your X-Plane 11 mirror screen, so you can make sure you're getting those 45 frames per second that you need. You'll have your joystick configuration, and let's talk about that for a second. I'm using CH Products flight yoke as well as pedals, and they work fine in VR. There's been some questions about that, if you can use yokes and sticks, and yes, you absolutely can, and that works the same exact way. You install them up here, in here, you calibrate them in here, and just as you would an X-Plane in 2D. You've got your keyboard function, so you can use for binding keys, and then you got GPS hardware, which is something that I don't use. So Let's go back to graphics. And this is how I have my graphics set up for pretty much all of my flying. Medium, and anti-aliasing at 1, sometimes 2. And then objects I have at low, reflection detail is minimum, and that's pretty much it. As you raise your objects and you raise your texture quality, you're going to decrease your frame rates, just the way it is right now. And you'll be surprised at what medium will look like. You would think it would be lower resolution than you would used to in maybe other VR systems like using Fly Inside, but actually it's not, and you'll see that because you're going to use this in combination with super sampling in your headset. For example, in the Rift, you can use the Oculus tray tool to set your super sampling above 1, as long as provided that your GPU and CPU can handle it. I have mine set at 1.7, which actually increases the graphic density, and I'm using a 1080 Ti, which allows me to boost things up a little bit. But if you're using something like a 1060, you'll probably won't want to go that high. But in any event, you'll want to use a combination of the X-Plane graphic settings as well as super sampling on your Vive or Rift headset to increase the clarity of vision once you're in the system. So once you have this set up properly for your system, you want to hit Enable VR Hardware, and that'll put you into the headset, as I mentioned before. Let's go into New Flight, and here you can see the planes, okay? And let's talk about supported planes. Now, X-Plane, Laminar Research official position is that there's certain stock planes, most of them, there's a few that are excluded, are supported in VR. The ones that are excluded, pretty sure I have this right, would be the Sikorsky helicopter. I believe the F4 Phantom and the SR-71 are not supported, but everything else is supported in VR. Oh, sorry, the Vision Jet too, that's not supported. Everything else is supported in VR. They do not officially support third-party planes. However, some will work. Like I found the V-Flight Air Cirrus SR20. That works just fine. All the buttons and knobs work in VR, but you can't control the yoke, unfortunately. But that's okay. You know, I'm able to fly it using my CH Products yoke. Okay. And also I find that the B1900D from Carenado seems to work fine, except some of the labels are screwed up. So the third-party aircraft manufacturers, or designers, I should say, developers, are going to have to become compatible with X-Plane VR. So you might see updates coming once 11.20 is out of beta and is in general. So now you also get a new plane with 11.20, the Aerolite 103 that you see here, which is a ultralight plane, pretty cool plane, small engine, lots of fun for flying around and giving you a really cool vision in VR. So I did a video on this. You might want to check that out if you want to see more about this plane. But today I'm going to fly the Cessna Skyhawk G1000. That's a completely supported plane, and we're going to be at French Valley, Marietta. What I want to do is customize here, and you can see this is very similar to what you would do. Hit the plus button. I'm going to scroll down here, and I want to put myself right there. Come on, there you go. North ramp, and then we'll do confirm. So what we're going to do is hit start flight here, and then we're going to check out how to use the motion controller once we're in the plane and in VR. So here we go. All right, so we're in here, and we're in VR. We're in the G1000 at Marietta, French Valley, Marietta Airport. And you'll notice that once you first load up X-Plane 11 VR 11.20 beta, that it takes a little bit of a time for the frames to kind of get up to speed and they get cranking a little bit. So you want to give the system a little bit of time to get working here. So right now we're projecting between 43 and 45 frames per second, which is what you need. May get a little judder once you dip below 45 frames per second. Let's first talk about the motion controller, whether it's Oculus or Vive. What you want to do is you want to hit the B button, and up will come this flowered menu system. You've got get in pilot seat, you've got flight config, that takes you back to the menu. You've got pause, you've got replay, which we'll look at later. You got views, and you've got advanced menu. So let's start with advanced menu. And here you've got your typical menu that you would see inside of when you're in X-Plane. So if you look at here, and there's all the the typical menu that we see under flight and flight configuration. You can go back by moving the joystick. If I go to view and I click like that, I can see all the views. And I'm just using the joystick to do that. There's your plugins. Once you've had plugins installed, you can administer them right there. So that's your advanced menu. Gets you back to basically the X-Plane menu. So if I can hit this menu again, now we'll go the get in pilot seat. What you're going to use that for is to get into this 3D view that we're in now. So if you find yourself that you're too close or too far, so let's say I want to move a little bit closer, what I want to do is physically, you can't see this, but I'm physically moving away from my sensors. Then I'm going to bring up the menu, and I'm going to hit get in pilot seat, and you'll see the instrument panel come closer to me, and there you go. And now if I move up, I'm much closer to the instrument panel, and I'm in a better position. So you can use that to position yourself. Now you can also teleport within the cockpit. I just teleported to the other side here, and I'm going to teleport to that seat there, so you could do that, right? So back to the menu. So that was get in pilot's view. Again, this one brings you back to the menu, so we're not the main menu, the X-Plane menu, so we're not going to do that. But let's take a look at views, all right? And that gives us multiple views here. Ride along, 3D cockpit, circle as a drone goes by, tower view, and chase. So let's take a look at ride along, and that brings us up here to the tail of the plane, and I can use the joystick on the controller to change my view up, down, left, right. Okay, it's kind of a cool. It's like a tail camera view, and you can. I don't know if you guys can see it, but you can see the tremendous detail of the plane right here. So let me go back to this. I'm going to go to views again, and we're going to take a look at circle view, and that's basically sort of like a chase view, and I can use the joystick again to circle around the plane like this and go up and go down. Okay, so that's that capability. And then the next view would be tower view. That's going to put me up here in the tower. You really don't have any panning ability here, but you could look around with your headset if you want to and take a look at all the areas. I'm not sure why we're jumping up and down there. So let's go back to views here, and we'll go to chase view. That's similar to the circle view, and you could use the joystick to pan around the plane like that. All right. So those are basically your views, and let me get back into the 3D cockpit. And the next thing on there would be replay, and we'll take a look at that later. So now, while you're in the cockpit, now I can interact with knobs and switches and even the yoke inside of the system. So I'm going to get myself a little bit closer. Now I have some things bound to my buttons on my yoke. So like this button here will actually does the same as 3D pilot seat, and this one will get me actually outside in a chase view, so I could do those quickly. And I actually have the hat switch tuned so I can move left, right, up, and down too. I highly recommend that if you have a yoke to do that, and I did a video on that if you want to check that out further. Okay, so once we're in here, as I said, you can interact with things. I can go here, and I'm grabbing this heading bug, okay, and once I pull down the trigger of the motion control, you can see the heading bug move, and I get haptic feedback from moving the heading. If I want to just click the button and it moves right to the heading that we're currently facing, that's a quick way to do that. But you can see I could also do this with the altitude. I can select that. As I do that, the altitude on the MF or the PFD changes. So if I'm doing my flight configurations, I could do that. I can go here and I can click this flight plan button, easy for me to say, and bring that up on the PFD. I can go over here and click menu, and if I want to change it to north up, I just hit the enter button, or search, it should say map up, or whatever the orientation is of the plane. I can change that. Okay, then go back to menu, or if I want to look at the flight plan, I can do that. So I have complete interaction. If I want to look at systems, if I want to change CDI, I could do that. I have complete interaction with instrument panel, and also I have interaction or capability with the throttles as well as the joystick. I can grab that as well. So one thing about the joystick that you should know, or I should say the yoke that you should know, is when you grab it, the flight motion, once you have it selected, okay, like that, you don't need any buttons held down anymore. It's basically locked with your controller. So you move your wrist down or forward like that to pitch the plane down. You move your wrist back to pitch the plane up. You twist your wrist left to turn the left, and you twist your wrist right to turn right. And that's the functions or the movement that you use with the touch controller to manipulate the yoke. All right, takes a little bit getting used to. At first I thought it was awkward, but it makes a lot of sense the way that they do that. All right, so to release the yoke, you just press the button like that, the trigger button, and that releases the yoke and puts it back in its original place. Now, one thing you might find if you've got a physical yoke like I do, you might find it's hard to get behind here because your touch controller gets in the way of your yoke and your touch controller are basically colliding, and you can't get to switches. So what I've done is I've got this thing set up here so I can actually move the whole panel up, and now I can easily do that and change a switch. like that. Okay, so that's one way to do it if you're using the hat switch like me. I know that Laminar is looking at ways to mitigate this issue, and I think we'll probably see that in the next beta release of X-Plane 11 VR. You know, that's basically something that you have to kind of watch out for. I could grab my X-Pad here. If I want to put my X-Pad right there, I could just put it right there. But there's a convenient place to put it right here on the yoke if I just let go of it like that, right? And that's basically it. That's how you use the motion controller inside the cockpit. You have two ways of flying. You can fly using the touch controller, and that's going to take some getting used to. Or you can fly, traditional method like I do, using a yoke, which is what I prefer to do. All right. So now I'm going to do a quick flight, and then I want to show you the replay. So I'm going to put my touch controller down here. Okay. And we're going to do a quick flight, get ourselves out on the runway here. And I want to show you how the replay works, because it's pretty cool. We'll just do a takeoff, and then I'll show you the replay of the takeoff. Let me get my flaps to 1, and then I'm going to take off right here. All right. Get up to rotate speed. Should be good right there. Rotate. Try to do a nice takeoff so it looks good in the replay. We're going to run the runway. And then what we'll do is I'll just veer off here to the right like this a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to get my touch controller. I'm going to bring up the menu. I'm going to hit pause. Boom. I just paused X-Plane. So now I'm in a pause state, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to go to replay. And then I'm going to go to rewind. You can see I'm going backwards now. Okay. And then we go play right here. And then what I can do is I can switch my views. So I'm going to go outside the plane. I'm using my views like my joystick, on my yoke, I should say, make it a little bit easier. And I'm right now taking off in full speed. Okay. If I want, I can pause that. I can rewind it. Slow speed, or regular speed, or super fast speed. And I can watch it in slow speed. Rotate it. Go up or down. And I can go super fast. Go slow. So you have the same controls as you would in your if you were flying, in 2D and replay that you now have in 3D, which is really great. This is one of the things that was lacking with Fly Inside, that now with X-Plane 11 VR, you can see it's really great that they built this in. So I'm going to end replay mode and get back into the cockpit, and then I'm going to go to the menu, and I'm going to hit unpause, and now I'm flying again. So if I just wanted to fly, if I wanted to take off, pause, and take a look at my takeoff, I could do that, which is a really cool feature. All right, so that's going to basically do it for the deep dive. That's all the functionality that you have right now in 11.20 VR in a nutshell. I hope this was helpful. As new releases come out, I'm going to try to do videos where we show some of the enhancements that Laminar is adding to this as we go along. And you have to keep in mind that this is a preview beta version of X-Plane 11 VR. So they're, the guys at Laminar are working to bring you more and more features and to make it so that it's a immersive experience. And at some point, you'll be able to use it completely for your typical flights within X-Plane, whether that's for just flying around to look at wonderful scenery like we're looking at here. This is all ortho scenery around French Valley. Or if you're using FS Economy or Pilot Edge, soon, once they get the enhancements put together and the release completely cranking, you're going to be able to do all that stuff in VR that you would in 2D. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button if you like what you saw. Don't forget to subscribe to Bambino Games for more X-Plane 11 in VR. And have a great day and a safe flight.